Ladies and gentlemen, here with Tim Seeley, who's closed a massive chapter in his life recently. Sad for us, longtime fans of the book Hack Slash, recently ended just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, like a month or so.
About a month?
Yeah.
Let me just say that from my cohort, Pete LePage, he was heartbroken that, this is a spoiler-heavy conversation, but that Vlad passed.
Yeah, that's right. And we also killed Pete LePage in it, too, so yeah. That was a couple issues before, but
right. That didn't bother him nearly as much.
Good. I mean, it was always sort of planned, but it was like part of the story had to be that, she had to move on to the next stage of her life, and she couldn't do that if she, still had like a one toe in the slasher thing. And basically, Vlad dying made her go all crazy slasher face. Yeah. Like, made her put on the mask and go all Jason on people.
That was awesome.
So, but that kind of just makes it. I think it was like a Destiny kind of story. We always planned it that way, but it still bugged me to kill a character. I mean, it made me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though, the end, we do see a hand reach for the mask.
Yeah, something.
Whose hand is that? Whose fingernails?
I don't know, yeah.
No one knows.
No, I don't know. No, I have actually a plan for how I'm going to do things in the future. So I set it up sort of with I kind of was surprised that the things I set up, 5-6 years ago, I actually was able to get to it. So I'm like, I'm going to do that now because I think I know what I'm doing. I probably will screw this up, but everything was kind of seeded towards the the very end with her deciding like have a kid, take the kid and all that sort of stuff. So it worked out. I was surprised. And it was sort of a relief and then sort of sad. But there's something nice about a story having an ending. Even if it can come back later in some form, like having the end point at the whole time makes you know what you're shooting for. I think like. Right. Writing Batman for 70 years, if you were just one guy working on his character like that, you'd
be a psychopath.
You'd be driven insane.
And this is the book that sort of brought you into the comic book industry in a way. Does that feel? How does that feel like? Sort of saying goodbye to that? Is it like I'm ready to move on and further into the industry?
Yeah, I think it's weird because that was like the first book I wrote, and then people even noticed like, oh, the guy who draws G.I. Joe is writing a horror book, and that was weird then.
Yeah.
And then now, having done it for so long, like when I started Revival, there was no surprise really. It was like, oh, he's doing another horror book, and so people weren't. I used to deal with a lot of like, huh, and now it's kind of like, oh, of course. But yeah, it's weird because like Hack Slash was kind of a book. I felt like, in a way, was sort of people pigeonholed it as like, oh, it's a sleazy, sexy, underpants shot thing, and that's it.
And no, it's an awesome underpants shot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And it's weird now that I'm doing Revival. It's sort of they definitely don't think of that book that way.
Right.
So maybe it's good to sort of have different, Bill, show that you're not just a one-trick pony, because people do tend to, especially entertainment, they tend to, sort of typecast. So,
yeah.
But
so let's talk Revival. Ben, what are we issue on now? 9 or 10?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Tell us about the book for those of us who aren't reading it, and then let's get into, there are a ton of characters in this book.
Yeah.
Sort of get into that a little bit.
It's set in a small town, central Wisconsin, which is actually my real hometown.
So we'll see you in the book in a little while.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm out of that town. I'm not even in there. But it's one day, a bunch of people come back from the dead. No one knows why. The town is put under quarantine, and it's up to this small town cop to whose sister is one of the return to sort of deal with the crimes that come with a bunch of people under quarantine no longer sort of sure of what's going on. So it's sort of about, small town sort of, being claustrophobia of sort of being stuck somewhere and cabin fever, and then that's sort of like, feeling that you'll never escape and all that sort of thing, put into a sort of pseudo-zombie horror comic.
And the cast is sort of expanding pretty quickly into like almost the whole, what it seems like to me, almost the whole town, when we're seeing sort of little bits and pieces of their life, how it's affecting them, and sometimes just like they're bad people, good people. It's very sort of, we're really seeing the town, I feel like. Are you going to start to winnow it back down to deal with the main story?
Yeah, basically what happens is that we broke it into seasons like in our heads. So the first 12 issues, basically the first 11, you meet everybody at some point, and then the second 12 issues, we don't really meet anybody new. We sort of just concentrate on those characters interacting. So, because the first thing is sort of it's really within like the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks after this has happened. So you sort of see how everybody reacts to it, and then the book will be about now they're living there and how do they deal with it. What has it affected, their jobs and their relationships and all that sort of stuff. So It's still really about the two main sisters as sort of the main characters, but because it is about a town and about different kinds of people, how they would react, we do get to see a lot of characters. And sometimes we get emails where people are just like, dude, too many characters. But it's like, no, we know, we actually know why we're doing this.
We did it on purpose.
Yeah, we did it on purpose. It's not an accident. And they actually all do, and this is the hardest thing about making that book, they all tie together. It'll all make sense as far as to who's attached to who and why we introduce them. And it's a pain in the ass tapestry to weave, but I think it works out pretty well.
It reminds me of like a Stephen King book sort of does a lot of that too, where it's like we meet all the characters, all this stuff happens, and then you realize why they come together.
Yeah, exactly. And part of it is just sort of, when setting up the story, we really wanted to show all the different ways that something like an event like this would actually affect people's lives. So it's not, some of the characters that you see dealing with it maybe aren't super important, but it's important for you to see how it affects those people. Like there's a character that shows up briefly who is a drug dealer, and all of a sudden it's like we can't sell drugs anymore because I can't get drugs in, so what do I sell? So they start selling body parts because people will buy them because they think they're magical, so it's really just about how all those people would deal with this kind of situation. But I don't want to give people character fatigue, so I promise it slows down.
And so you grew up in this town. Who's the last person you would want to knock on your door and be like, remember me? I died a while ago.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Is there a high school ex-girlfriend that's maybe...
Oh, no. Like, the thing is with my town, I actually really always... you hate it when you're a teenager, and then you get older and you get more affection for it, and you sort of go, oh, that was actually... And this book is sort of me apologizing to a degree to my hometown, which I kind of slagged on for years. And now that I'm, seeing, the good people... I mean, I don't know, we always make Wausau look great in the book because, there's bad people and good people, but it's sort of my, hey, I wrote this off and I'm sorry. You know what I mean?
It's an apology to your hometown.
Yeah.
That's great. Are you going to have to change your Twitter handle now that Hackslash is over with?
Reviving Tim Seeley?
Yeah. Or Old Ham Breath is another one we talked about.
Yeah, Old Ham Breath. No, I think I'm totally fine with being known for Hackslash, and I think, we're doing the Hackslash versus Army of Darkness crossover coming up in July, so... and that actually follows directly after the end of the series. So, there'll always be Cassie around. I think, and I'm proud that we have a book that's it's 5 volumes of big fat omnibus, and you can, hopefully we'll be selling those for a long time, and new people will be coming into it. And that's that's one of the great reliefs of comics is when you get done with something, you're like, oh, those things will always exist. You can't undo it. It happened. Those books are on shelves, man. So that's really kind of a nice thing too. So I'm glad, we got to what we thought we would, and the books are still. I mean, I meet people that are just picking it up now. So they picked up Revival and went, oh, this guy is not. It's not as terrible as I thought it would be. So So now they buy Hackslash.
Someday you'll be sitting in your library in your hometown, the walls and walls of books. The dead will rise, and it'll all come true.
Exactly. And I'll say, I told you. I told you. Yeah.
I told you so. You'll be reviled as a new savior. And that's the future, you guys. Old Ham Breath has risen again. Thanks for talking to us.
Always a pleasure,
Congrats
man.
on the book. And
Thank
check
you.
out Revival, you guys. And stay tuned for plenty more from C2E2.